Dan Forrester, a biology instructor and former Green Beret, is unsuccessful in securing a position at a famous research institute in December 2022. During a Christmas party where he is watching the World Cup, troops from the year 2051 arrive to warn that mankind is in danger of being extinct because of a conflict with alien invaders known as the White Spikes. Majority of mankind will be wiped out by the White Spikes 3 years after they first appear in November 2048. A worldwide draft is instituted when members of the world's army are sent into the future through the jump-link wormhole technology, but fewer than 30% of them survive deployment to return in 7 days. There is little hope for humanity's survival after a year of the draft and an expanding anti-war movement. Dan reports to basic training together with other draftees after learning that he has been selected. Dan and fellow draftee Charlie come to the conclusion that those who were drafted had already passed away before the conflict even begins in order to avoid a contradiction. Few of the draftees survive since they were dropped in the wrong place above the city. Instead, they are sent ahead in time to a battlefield near Miami Beach. Colonel Forrester gives the draftees the order to save neighboring lab workers before the region is sterilized. The draftees find the lab staff dead but manage to save their research. As Dan informs HQ about the predicament, he learns that no assistance will be dispatched to rescue the trapped soldiers. Many of the draftees are killed except for Dan, Charlie, and Dorian, a battle-hardened soldier on his 3rd deployment to the future. At a military camp in the Dominican Republic, the survivors awaken. Colonel Forrester, who turns out to be his grown daughter Maury, requests that Dan report to him. She asks him to go with her on a mission to catch a female white spike because they are less common than the males that are usually seen. They capture the female and imprison her, only to have hordes of men surround them. Dan and Maury flee to a beach as the chopper carrying the woman takes off and call for help. Maury explains that Dan abandons his family and perishes in a vehicle accident in 2030 because he is unhappy with his life as a result of losing his work. Transportation of Dan, Maury, and a female white spike to a fortified oil rig near to Port Nelson, where the jump link is located. Dan is developing a poison with his daughter that will kill the captured female. Just as they begin to assault the facility, they discover a match to kill the aliens. The former prisoner female spears Colonel Forrester with one of her spikes as the white spikes attacks the base. Dan watches her as she falls from the gantry shortly before he is sent back in time with the poison to generate it in large quantities. Dan tries to give the poison to the army so that it may be transported back to the future but discovers that the jump link is down since the white spikes destroyed it. The announcement that the jump link is down, signaling that the battle has been lost, caused chaos throughout the planet. When Dan and his wife Emmy are coming up with ideas, Emmy concludes that the white spikes did not come in 2048 but rather arrived much earlier. They propose that the white spikes have been on Earth since the Millennium eruption in the year 946 and that global warming caused their release when they thawed out and emerged from under the ice caps. Dan consults with Charlie and Martin, a high school student interested in volcanoes, and they support this theory. To support his idea, Dan organizes to Russia with Charlie, Dorian, a few living future troops, and his estranged father James. In the Academy of Sciences glacier on Komsomolets Island, the crew discovers an extraterrestrial ship that has crashed. They discuss making the public aware of the issue, but ultimately opt to put a stop to the threat right now. Upon inside, they discover that the white spikes are bioengineered creatures rather than actual aliens who may have been used as cattle or a weapon to cleanse the planet. The squad injects the poison into a number of the hibernating white spikes. This kills the injected but awakens the others, and the majority of the team dies. Dorian, who has terminal disease and wants to pass away on his terms, stays behind to use C4 to blow up the ship, which results in the deaths of everyone save one white spike. Charlie and Dan are the only members of the crew left after Dan and his father capture the lone girl who managed to flee. Dan invites James to meet his wife and daughter, happy that the war has been stopped and mankind has been spared, and resolved to avoid the mistakes that Maury had forewarned him about in the future.